After my discovery of the Bryant Lake Bowl, I was on that beach for 3 days, and I came away from the experience with two very important facts. Number one, there are only so many variations on sandcastle you can do before you feel like a fucking idiot. And number two, it's impossible to calculate year based solely on sun position and some remedial math. So I decided to move on. I was hoping I could find another one of those time doorways like the one the plane went through. Perhaps this was some sort of phenomenon that wasn't just in the sky. I was hopeful. Drawing on my forestry experience and my well-tuned physique, I was able to navigate the jungle with some ease. I made my way slowly onward, and then in the distance I saw it. Some ruins. I had been here before. I recognized these ruins. Because once, very long ago, they had been the Loring Playhouse, a venue where I had been in I had my own comedy show. I was the star of a comedy show, before the Scrimshaw Show, a long time ago. Anyway, with these memories, I nestled in and slept there for the night, hoping to dream of the past. In the morning I was awakened by a noise, and once again deftly made my way through the jungle. Sure enough, I had found one of these time door things, and as I was investigating it, it just pulled me right in. The door opened on an arid landscape, filled with stuff in an arid landscape. This was plainly nowhere near Minneapolis, so I decided to go through the door, which was still there. The door pushed me out in this way that made me fall into a bush, and it was totally the door because I had complete control up until that point. And look, I am not a clumsy anyway. So I looked around and made the command decision that perhaps I was not in Minneapolis, or indeed probably even Minnesota. The door had not disappeared, so once again I stepped through it. The door rudely threw me onto the ground. It vanished shortly after, only to return for a fraction of a second as a slap in the face. Thanks, door. Anyway, the door was gone, and there were no more doors in sight. I decided to move on and found that I was in actual civilization, although it looked a little earlier than perhaps the civilization I was hoping for. Based upon the dress of those around me, I decided I was either in Renaissance Fair town or perhaps in the late 18th century. I chose the latter. Luckily, I found a door. Unfortunately, it was on the other side of an extremely tall and really sharp, pointy fence that no one could have ever made their way over. And, I tried and everything, but it was impossible for anyone, seriously. So I decided to go get some help.
I left Cassandra early to meet my brother James. He was to take me to the assembly rooms for a concert. Only 15 minutes into the performance, I felt faint, and so stepped outside for some fresh air, having found the hall somewhat oppressive. It was at this point that a gentleman, and I use the term loosely, of a strange and dishevelled appearance accosted me. He was agitated and seemed anxious for me to help him boost to find a door. Naturally, I was reluctant to follow, though he left me no choice by holding me rather firmly about the wrist. Things became more strange at this point, and I was certain that I must be dreaming, for there was indeed some kind of door. He seemed to think that by placing a foot on my clasped hands, he could scale the fence. not wishing to dirty my new gloves, I indicated to him the gate, which was not locked. As he ran to the gate, however, the door disappeared and he seemed to believe my presence necessary to locate another. Strange gentleman as he was, he showed no consideration of anybody, and hastened to find his doorway, dragging me breathlessly behind him. His coarse manners meant that I was allowed no rest. My nerves were a little shredded, to say the very least. Eventually we located another door, unless it was the same one, which rather unfortunately was again inaccessible. I would have helped him in the hopes of ending this strange situation had I the means, though, and I tell the truth, this uncouth man attempted to climb me. I am not accustomed to such rough handling, and put paid to this instantaneously. Unfortunately, this doorway also disappeared, and this man insisted upon dragging me through streets again in the most exceedingly inelegant manner. I thought that it would finally end, as he discovered a third door in a garden, which was unobscured with no restriction. Alas, again we were too late, and I was obliged to take a rest. It was only after this sequence of events that he regained manners enough to ask about myself and who I was. I informed him that I was a writer. I told him of how I admired Lord Byron and Scott, though my own works could not imitate theirs. Indeed, mine are of the domestic kind and observational of life in country villages. The Prince Regent asked me once to write of the royal family, which was most flattering indeed and exceedingly kind, though I had to decline as I can commission no such work, and could never do such a piece adequately. I could no more write a romance than an epic poem. I could not sit seriously down to write a serious romance under any other motive than to save my life. This gentleman, however, appeared ignorant of Scott, Byron, and the house of Saxe-Coburg. Indeed, I began to believe him to be almost entirely without education. He soon grew restless again, and took me with him, on a quest that seemed increasingly fruitless. We descended a flight of steps, which seemed mountainous in my fatigue, and I had to request this ill-mannered man to offer me his hand to help me down. As I stepped down, however, he fell upon a new shilling, and left me to stumble and fall, hitting my...
Oh my God, it was one thing after another with her. Ow, you're pulling me too hard. Ow, you're hurting my wrist. My name's not Jenny. You don't know who Saxe-Coburg or whatever is. It was just... Well, I checked to see if she was okay. And as it seemed like she probably wasn't, I had to weigh, the situation here. Do I go back to Minnesota where they need me, or do I hang out with this dead old-fashioned girl? So I made my choice. And frankly, it's not that big a deal. Who cares if some old-fashioned girl dies back and who knows when? It's not like it's going to be a big problem or something. I moved on, and I found this other door, which dropped me into this castle. So I stand up, I'm trying to get my bearings, I'm looking around, and then some asshole shoots an arrow into my neck. Well, I lost my balance, and I fell and hit with enough force to kill me instantly, which I suppose is some sort of poetic justice for me killing Jenny or whatever. So I never made it back to the Scrimshaw Show.